Welcome. I always say this special episode of Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights, but certainly today is a special episode. I get to interview a fellow outstanding podcaster, John Newman, as you can see from the show notes, from the title of the episode. So I'm looking forward to that. First, I always like to thank the sponsors before I get going, because otherwise I might forget. And I've got great sponsors: Topps Panini and Upper Deck, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, as well as Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, and ComC.com. So, John, welcome to the show. I think you're probably familiar with most, if not all, of my sponsors, and I'm a faithful listener of your show. But I'm glad we're getting a chance to have this conversation. So, tell us about your origin story. How you? I've listened to your show enough to hear some, but I recommended your show. But why don't you give a snapshot so the listeners can hear it straight from you?
Well, I appreciate it. And I got to say, Dr. Beckett, for me, this is someone who started in 1979 in the sports card world as a 7-year-old. This is a huge thrill for me. I can't stress that enough. So there, it starts in 1979. 7-year-old, my grandfather bought me my first pack of 1979 Topps. I've always been a sports kid. I've played baseball since the age of 5. I grew up in New York City. At that time, I was a Yankee fan. I'm no longer a Yankee fan. I'm a Mets guy. Everyone can laugh now.
Wow.
That first pack, the fourth card in, was a Reggie Jackson, and at that time, he was the toast of New York City, Mr. October, and the rest was history. I was in the cards at that point, as full time as a 7-year-old can be, and I just always stayed with it. And it's funny. My friends collected, and they wanted more the gum than the cards, so I give up my gum and just get more cards. And
you're one of the few people that I've heard say that. That's exactly what I did when I was growing up. I took the gum and I traded it. Usually got 2 cards for the stick of gum.
Yeah, I wound up getting more cards.
I should have kept the wrapper. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, if we only knew then what we know now, as the saying goes. You think I would have better teeth with all the gum I wasn't chewing? Me too. So I just, I started young, and then I was going to a card store, and I just was there a lot. And the owner of the card store, his name was Rudy, and he said, "Hey, you're here, so much. I need some extra help. Do you want to work here? I'll pay you. I'll give you half in credit and half in cash." And I started doing that. And then I started doing shows. He was doing shows, so I started traveling and doing the shows and helping him out there. I was basically, was the quickest Munster box maker in the East, I think. And and then, I obviously at that point I've started to amass quite a collection. And even friends of mine were like, "You should do your own shows." And I really, played tug of war in my mind. I mean, I got along with Rudy, who I was working for, and finally I decided, I wanted to do it, something I wanted to pursue. I told him. He wasn't real excited about it, to be honest with you, but I did it. He didn't talk to me for maybe a year, and then eventually, he kind of the ice kind of melted, and I started doing shows. I did the Northeast kind of circuit here in this area, and then I went on to I opened a store at the age of 20 in 1992. Did that for 4 years, from 92 to 96. eBay kind of came along. I did a whole episode. I called it The Blessing and the Curse. And then, at 20, I was in my 20s. A lot of my friends were like, "Hey, we're going on a road trip. We're doing this. You want to go?" And I was kind of locked into the store, and where I couldn't, partake in a lot of these extracurricular activities. eBay came along. I had a partner in that store. I kind of mentioned to him, any interest if I wanted to kind of to leave the store. He's like, "Well, I don't want you to leave, but we can work something out." It's, some of the inventory was both of ours. Some was just mine. Some was just his. We came to agreement. Again, I started doing a combination of shows and selling on eBay. And I did that for, then the internet came along really strong with stores and being able to market the cards besides eBay. And I started doing that. And then the podcasting thing, I always later on, obviously, I always had an interest in it. I thought about doing it. I think about it and then I wouldn't do it. And
you mean 5 years ago you were thinking about it? Or 2 years ago?
Probably about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago, I kind of thought about doing it. You tinker with it in your mind, and then you just never do it. You never get equipment you need, and you just then it comes up again in your mind, and you have those battles in your mind. And then what happened was a friend, Dan Tortora, who used to work for ESPN Radio, he left there, and he does a daily radio show. He started Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and I had Fridays off from my real job, and he's like, "Hey, John, why don't you come on?" He knew I was into cards, and he dabbled a little bit. He's like, "Why don't you come on Friday for like an hour or two? Bring some cards," because his was a video and audio. Bring some cards, talk about them. We'll talk about sports and sports card and how they kind of relate to each other and how one affects the other. And I did that. We did like 15. It was really only supposed to be one, just kind of a spur of the moment thing. And a bunch of people, emailed them. They got feedback like, "Are you doing this every Friday?" And so he called me up. He goes, "You want to do this every Friday?" And so we did about 15 Fridays in a row. And then my job, I had Fridays off, and then my job's like, "We kind of need you in the office on Friday." So that was the end of doing the Friday show with Dan. And then I think, but that experience proved to me, hey, like, you can do this. Like, you just did it video, you did it audio. And to me, that was kind of the litmus test.
Which do you prefer? I mean, I'm kind of enjoying the simplicity of audio, but I know I'm missing out on the ability to convey the images of the cards and things like that. But do you have a preference for audio or video, or does it not matter to you?
I don't think it matters now. I think initially the audio was easier, and you could, for me, I don't do a live show with my own podcast, so you can always edit it, stuff out, clean it up. With live stuff, as you know, I mean, it's only really one take. You flub up a word, or you trip on it is what it is. So I'm comfortable doing both, but I mean, other than doing Dan's show, when I finally decided to do Sports Card Nation podcast, that was just audio. And so, yeah.
Sports Card Nation, you got a great, there's great content, it's a great title. I like what you're doing. But are you excited about doing this hobby hotline as well? I mean, that's a lot of moving parts there with a lot of different hosts and callers.
Yeah.
Is that how are you enjoying that? Because it's the opposite of just speaking into a microphone. You have no idea what's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah, we've done 2 shows. They the first and second show, a lot of times they say that's it's a little rough around the edges. I actually thought we did really well. It's a call-in show. It's just hard to.
Show notes, because I mean, you go on with these different guests and different hosts.
Yeah,
and so it's going to be something that people are going to have to. You're going to have to help them navigate through what it is, I guess.
Yeah,
there's going to be some great nuggets in there.
It's a take off the old cardboard connection.
Right.
I think the biggest thing for us as a group is, we all come from individual shows where you can kind of talk as long as you want. Now you have to, acquiesce to others. So I've learned to kind of, try to keep my answers shorter than maybe I normally would if I was doing my own show. And it's a call-in show, so obviously we want people to be interactive and call in, and so far so good. I think as we get more under our belt, I think it'll get better and better.
Do you have a potential to have too much success there? I mean, in the sense that if it really catches on, which I think it could, you could have so many people queued up to call in that how long would the show have to be?
Yeah, I think,
it's a good problem to have. But...
Yeah, I guess it is. I think then you have to debate, with enough hosts, do we do maybe a weekday version and the Saturday morning version that we do now? I mean, that's something that we'll cross that bridge, I guess, when we come to it. But, the nice thing is with 9-10 of us, every week we can have some new people. It keeps the show sort of fresh. So we'll see. Like you said, it is a good problem to have if that's what occurs. And, I think we have enough people where we could do 2 shows if push came to shove.
Well, it's not just 2. So you're doing Hobby Hotline, and then you're doing Sports Card Nation, obviously, but you're also doing something with Drew, right?
Yeah, I do with Drew Herndon. I do.
So that's more of a.
That's a sports. That's an NFL.
Any hobby content in there at all? Or is it more?
Yeah, we'll throw it in there. It's not a big. I'd say it's probably 5-10%. I mean, if someone wasn't really a football fan and they listened to that show or watched that show for hobby content, I'm gonna be honest with you, they'll be probably disappointed. But we do mention it from time to time. It comes out. You get two hobby guys talking sports. It's just bound to.
I love to see the way you're cooperating with other people in the industry. Again, I'm a pay it forward guy too, and think that's great. One question I was going to ask you, it comes up on your show. It doesn't come up on my show as much, but when I look at the podcast landscape, there is amazing coverage of basketball, more so than even football and even baseball. And I just think basketball is really taking off globally, and you dedicate some time to it. I do too, but there's several podcasts just mainly about basketball, and basketball is just on fire.
Yeah, and those podcasts, I don't listen to every episode, full disclosure, and to be told, but I do catch some episodes, and those guys do a bang-up job, better than I could even attempt if I was to really just focus on it solely. Obviously, I collect basketball, baseball, football, even hockey. I try to,
me too.
I try to incorporate everything. Sometimes I do a better job than others, but I do. And one thing I do try to do, Dr. Beckett, is bring guests on. We literally have a guest every week, and I try to bring guests on to cover, all those aspects and not leave anyone, out in the cold, so to speak.
Well, I mean, it's a huge hobby, and to think that their podcast just dedicated to basketball is terrific. It's terrific because then people can choose what they want to listen to. Full disclosure, I actually do listen to all the episodes, but I listen at double speed, and so I'm sure I'm missing a little bit by speeding it up. But it helps me get through. If I'm on the road or something, I can knock out a few episodes. It makes an hour episode turn into 30 minutes.
Yeah,
it cuts out some of the the sound between the pauses and things like that. So, and there's some good stuff in there. It's not like podcasting is cool and it, you just listen. So you can be doing something else while you're doing it, but it's not like a book where you can skim and then go back and reread easily or look at the words more. It's in one ear and out the other, and hopefully you retain some of it if it's something that's important. So, it's been a lot of fun. I was a big podcast listener before I even thought about doing this. Do you listen to other podcasts?
I do.
A long time ago? 4 or 5 years ago, were you?
Yeah, and I've listened to sports podcasts. I've listened to even some true crime stuff that piques my interest. But for the hobby, and I've said this, I've gotten to know Eric. I know you know him very well.
Eric, great guy.
Eric, to me, not to make it about one. Eric was really the, if I looked at anyone sort of an influence, or if he was the guy that he was the show I really listened to all the time, and it's funny. I joked with him. I got to know him, and we talked, and I actually hung out with him at the Expo in Toronto for a few days and roomed with him. It's funny, here you kind of listen to someone, and then here you are, you get to know him on that level, and I'm very grateful, that was able to happen. But I get a lot from him. He's kind of one of the first ones to really do it, and he covers a wide gamut.
Right, and he brings passion to every segment.
Yeah, no doubt.
Good young man. Young man. Let's see. Anything else my listeners ought to know about? We're running a little low on time, and just like I said, I'll direct them. But why don't you kind of lay out a little bit of your social media aspects of how people can track what you're doing besides the podcast? Because you got Sports Card Nation, and the Hobby Hotline and the
Roughing the Passer.
But social media wise, where's your main? Where do you put your main efforts?
Twitter's probably my main social media where if you want to call it, hang out the most and interact with people and conversate with people. Instagram too, Facebook. But I would say if we're ranking them and which one I'm more active on, I'd put Twitter first. And if you search Sports Card Nation podcast, you'll find me. It comes up. I try to make it as easy and painless as possible. And we do have I've decided, if I may do one more quick plug. I know we're on time, but I'm going to be doing a fourth show by myself. I get a lot of feedback, which is what I asked for. I know you do the same. And the Sports Card Nation show goes an hour and a half. We've had 2-hour episodes.
Right.
That's long and comparatively. And so I got a lot of feedback. John, did you ever think of doing like a shorter show, no guests, just you pick a topic, kind of basically like you do, and there's a lot of other shows popping up. So I am going to do that. It's not going to be every day. It might be once a week. It might be once every 2 weeks, whenever something's on my mind. I'm calling it Hobby Quick Hits, and it's going to be there's no set date. Like Sports Car Nation's every Friday, like clockwork. It's not going to be like that. It's just going to be a sporadic thing. Just me. Could be 8 minutes long. It could be 15 minutes long, and it could cover a variety of topics from selling platforms to a rant that might be on my mind, a pet peeve, and that sort of thing. I'm actually going to, I think, announce it later on today. I'm not sure when the first.
Well, I will look forward to that. If it's something I can subscribe to, I will. Our time. Thanks, John. Thanks, listeners. I will say this. I am looking forward to your hobby quick hits, but I frankly have enjoyed the interviews more than me speaking in the microphone. So I enjoyed today with you, John. Best to you. We'll talk again. Look forward to catching all of your shows. Thanks, listeners. Be back again tomorrow with another episode.